Up all my movie loving maniacs, it's your boy Bangful B, and with the release of Deadpool and Wolverine, everybody, myself included, ranked all the X-Men movies, but everybody is also ranking the Marvel Cinematic Universe with the release of Deadpool and Wolverine. So I thought I'd join all the cool kids and do it myself, so let's. In last place is Thor: Love and Thunder, which to me is not just the worst Thor film, but the worst Marvel film, period. After the success of Thor Ragnarok, they gave Taika Waititi carte blanche to do whatever we want, and this is the movie we got. And it's not good. Real quick, let me just say, I don't hate any MCU movie. I don't think there's any terribly bad movies, but there are disappointing ones. And this movie is one of those movies. At number 33 is Thor: The Dark World. I don't hate this movie, and I do remember having a good theater experience when watching it, but when all is said and all is done, this is not a good Thor movie. But the only reason I still like this movie over Thor: Love and Thunder is because we still get serious Thor with some comedic elements peppered in here and there, but yeah, not good at all. Malekith, piss poor villain. 32 is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. There are elements in this movie that I like, but at the same time, this was one of the more disappointing MCU movies. They really dropped the ball with Kang the Conqueror. He's teased as the big bad of the multiverse saga, and he gets defeated by Ant-Man, the runt of the Avengers. Come on now. And it was also a missed opportunity by trapping Ant-Man and the Wasp in the quantum realm at the end. That could have added some emotional stakes, but 31 is The Marvels. Now, I didn't think this movie was as bad as everyone makes it out to be, but at the same time, it's still one of the lesser movies. And let me just say real quick, anybody that hated on this movie because women, well, to quote my buddy from the Real For Real podcast, fuck around and find out in the comments section if you want to. I don't play that shit. At number 30 is Ant-Man and the Wasp, which I thought was okay at best. At number 29 is Black Widow, which a movie that just came a few years too late. I do like it when Marvel tackles the spy genre, but this movie here just wasn't quite good. And they dropped the ball with Taskmaster. What it did with Taskmaster in this movie makes sense in the context of the movie, but to hardcore Taskmaster fans, this was just unforgivable. At 28 is Captain Marvel, which, again, I didn't think is as bad as everyone makes it out to be, but at the same time, I think it's on the mid side. To anybody that hated on this movie because of Brie Larson, once again, fuck around and find out in the comments section if you want to. I don't play that shit. At 27 is Iron Man 2, which used to be much, much lower, but over the years, I've kind of grown to appreciate this movie. Granted, this movie is just a giant setup for the Avengers, but it still works as an Iron Man movie. At 26 is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. This movie wasted so many opportunities on so many fronts, but I still thought it was an enjoyable movie at best. Plus, I still thought this movie worked as a Sam Raimi movie. At 25 is The Incredible Hulk, which is the black sheep of the entire franchise, tone-wise. And I say black sheep because after this movie, they recast the person playing Bruce Banner. At first, it was Edward Norton, which, in my opinion, is the best Bruce Banner. And they replaced him with Mark Ruffalo, who did a magnificent job, don't get me wrong. Now, this movie ain't the best, but to me, it's still the best Incredible Hulk movie that we're ever going to get until further notice. Especially after what they've been doing with the Hulk as of late, I appreciate this movie more and more. At number 24 is Iron Man 3, which also used to be much, much lower, but over the years I've grown to appreciate it and appreciate the fact that it's a standalone thing that doesn't try to set up things. And plus, it's also vital to Tony Stark's story. I didn't have any issues with what they did with The Mandalorian because, again, I thought it made sense in context of the movie, but I know there are hardcore Mandarin fans out there that did not like what they did with the Mandarin. And I don't blame those people either. At 23 is Spider-Man Homecoming, which, don't get me wrong, I do think this is a good movie, but I think this movie is more so a Marvel movie than a Spider-Man movie. But Michael Keaton as the Vulture is exceptional. At number 22 is Ant-Man, and honestly, that's really all I have to say about this movie. At 21 is Spider-Man Far From Home, and the reason I have this movie over Spider-Man Homecoming is because we take Spider-Man out of his element, and plus I thought this movie worked as the perfect epilogue for Endgame. Like I said, and it's the same problem I had with Spider-Man Homecoming. I feel like this movie more so works as a Marvel movie than a Spider-Man movie. At 20 is Captain America the First Avenger. I thought this was a perfect movie to introduce the character, and making it a period piece was brilliant. Avengers Age of Ultron, which is another Marvel movie I don't think is as bad as everyone makes it out to be. James Spader as Ultron is electric, and I also like how this movie progresses the main Avengers. 18 is the original Thor, and if you're more so into serious Thor, this is the movie for you. And I just like how he took Thor out of his element and he learns humility throughout the whole movie. This was the perfect movie to introduce the character, especially for someone like me that never read the Thor comics. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which is a movie that I was really digging up until the final act, once we dropped all the kung fu and it got into all the CGI dragons and everything. I did enjoy this movie, but this is the movie where the Marvel formula was really starting to get noticeable and stale. Hot take, I'm one of the few people in the movie that likes this movie. I don't think it's as bad as everyone makes it out to be. I think Chloe Zhao, as the director of this movie, she put her foot into this one. That being said, I do think this movie would have been better served as a TV show. At 15 is Doctor Strange. I'll admit, the first time I saw this movie in the theater, I was like, well, that was fun. Next. But after multiple rewatches, after more appearances from the character outside of his solo films, and especially after Multiverse of Madness, I appreciate this movie more and more. At 14 is the one that started it all, the original Iron Man, which to the surprise of a lot of people is a little lower. Now, don't get me wrong, I'll always have a spot in my heart for this movie because it is the first, but I just personally like the next 13 entries more. 13 is the original Guardians of the Galaxy. James Gunn was able to take characters that next to nobody had never heard of or read and made them household names. At 12 is Deadpool and Wolverine, which is recently released. Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Their chemistry together is perfect. I love all the nostalgia, and it was a perfect send-off to the Fox era of Marvel movies. But when you strip away all that, it is kind of weak on story, now that I think about it. Number 11 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which I personally vibed with a lot more than the first film. It's a lot higher to the surprise of a lot of people. But I just love how they progress the characters in this movie, and everything involving the unsung hero of this movie, Yondu, just hit me on a personal and an emotional note. Rounding up my top 10 is Thor Ragnarok, which without a question is the best of the Thor films. This movie had a perfect blend of comedy, done perfectly by Taika Waititi, who continues to progress the character of Thor and his relationship with Loki, as well as countless others. Without a doubt, the funniest of the MCU. And I know it was drawing for a lot of people to go from serious Thor to funny Thor, but this was the injection of fresh air that this movie and franchise needed. Number 9 is Black Panther Wakanda Forever, which I know this movie has some haters. And over time, I have jumped on the they should have recast T'Challa train. But Princess Shuri as the new Black Panther still isn't a bad choice. This was one of the most troubled movie productions in modern memory because of the death of an actor. But the character and actress that played the Black Panther, she stepped up. Even though Namor is nothing like his comic book counterpart, he is the perfect example of fuck around and find out. 8 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. This was the perfect third entry in this trilogy. Everything involving Rocket, moment of silence. 7 is Spider-Man No Way Home. If Deadpool and Wolverine was a celebration of the Fox era of Marvel, this movie is a celebration of Spider-Man in movies. And even when you strip away all the nostalgia and cameos, this movie still works as a Spider-Man movie. At number 6 is Captain America The Winter Soldier. Before I saw this movie, everybody was telling me about how much better this movie is than the first film, and I was like, yeah, okay. But then I saw it, I'm like, oh, by better, you mean fucking better. Number 5 is the first Avengers movie. Seeing all these heroes for the first time from different franchises and different personalities, that is a theater experience I will never forget. Number 4 is Avengers Endgame. They was able to take 10 years worth of movies and culminate it into this epic conclusion right here. And without a doubt, a theater experience I will never forget. Number 3 is Avengers Infinity War. There's a reason Empire Strikes Back is my favorite Star Wars movie of all time, and this movie is the perfect example. I love seeing the heroes fail because it makes their eventual victory in the next movie worth it. Thanos, as the villain in this movie, is chef's kiss. Number 2 is Black Panther. Not only this movie was a cultural phenomenon, but this movie was just brilliant on so many fronts. Michael B. Jordan as Killmonger, chef's kiss. And at number 1 is Captain America Civil War, which is my favorite MCU movie because of how they divided the Avengers, how they introduced Spider-Man and Black Panther, and that twist ending is something I will never forget. But that's my ranking. What do you think, and how do you rank these movies? Let me know.